Welcome to Get Beyond the Buzz with your host, Susan Cromer. Join Susan and her guests as they explore the subject of medical marijuana and CBD, separating the myth from reality in the journey toward a better quality of life. It's about getting healthy, not getting high. Now, here's your host, Susan Cromer.
It is my pleasure to welcome today Laura Mastropietro. Laura is a cannabis consultant who helps people who want information about cannabis as a medical health option, but don't know who to ask or where to start. She offers confidential expert answers that are tailored to each personal situation. Also, Laura was featured in Cannabis Saved My Life, Stories of Hope and Healing by Elizabeth Limbach. If you're tired and simply done trying to figure it all out on your own, Laura will make it clear and simple and get you the information you need to start feeling better fast.
Well, welcome, Laura. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
So let's get started with what got you started in the medical marijuana field?
Long story short, I had a very significant health crisis it lasted about 5 years before they figured out what was going on with me. I was finally diagnosed with an extremely rare disorder called porphyria. And one of the issues with porphyria is extreme pain, but intolerance to pain medication.
Ouch.
So you had kind of a catch-22 there. I have, perhaps been familiar slightly with cannabis prior to that, but not for the specific purpose. I also had nausea and vomiting for that entire 5 years. Lost probably about 45 pounds. It was pretty significant illness. So near the end, I had been prescribed Marinol, synthetic cannabis for the nausea.
Okay, yes, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. And I really found that it made me talk too much. I had a lot of side effects that I didn't like, and then when it stopped, and you felt the crash. And I couldn't understand why that was better than using the plant that I had access to.
Yeah, right. Why make something fake that you can get for real?
And an herbal dried flower bud, non-toxic. These definitely weren't for me. So I continued on my own, using my own, what do they call, there's a group, illegally healed, sort of. From there, when medical marijuana was brought up on the ballot here in Arizona.
Is that where you were living when all this was going on, Arizona?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and that's where I still am.
Okay.
I'm was really excited to find out that we elected this very conservative governor. I didn't think for a chance that cannabis was going to pass that year. Sure enough, after about an extra week of counting the ballots, we found out that it passed. I immediately started searching out ways to volunteer. I didn't really have any path in mind. I just know I wanted to be part of this somehow because I know how important it had been to my survival up until then.
Now, was that for medical or is recreational? Is it recreational in Arizona now? It is not, correct?
Did not pass this year.
Okay.
In part because of cannabis advocates is one of the main reasons the recreational didn't pass. But at this point, it was strictly a medical marijuana program. And what was set up was a caregiver system. And my husband and I answered an ad in the newspaper about looking for people who were interested in participating in the program. We volunteered with a group of 60 other adults who grew cannabis for patients.
Okay, so caregivers, because I'm familiar with it, but I know a lot of people aren't. I think it's a great idea and fascinating to explain what caregivers are, please.
Unfortunately, they're gone now. Dispensaries open. But what the caregiver system was basically I, as a caregiver, I signed up with the state as a licensed caregiver who would provide medicine to up to 5 people. Those 5 people had to be assigned to me. That's where they would obtain their medication. The nice part about the cooperative that we made was we had this huge warehouse where 60 of us each had individualized tents that we grew our own cannabis in. And then we were able to combine, we served up to 300, I think at the end we had 350 patients that the 60 of us cared for. We were able to pool, I may have a strain that one person liked or vice versa. So that was kind of the start of getting into the business. From there, we needed somebody to make edibles for patients. They weren't really legal. People were allowed to have them. They weren't allowed to buy them, I think, was the caregiver rule at the time. It was a really great area. I have a really good friend who served 2 years in jail for not getting the distinctions of the grays in that law. So anyways, we just gave them away. And that somehow fell onto me. And I had never baked. My kids were quite angry that I learned to bake at this late stage. So we had to close up. Once the dispensaries opened, the caregiver program was considered no longer legal. You couldn't grow marijuana if you lived within 25 miles of a dispensary was the rule. And they pretty much set it up so everybody in the state is within 25 miles. I think at the time, too, it was as the crow flies. So you could live on 100 miles around the mountain, but the crow could get there in 22.
Yeah. I think that's what I also want people to realize is they say, oh, but it's legal medically, but it doesn't mean it's easy. There's still a lot of, you're sick and you got to travel far to get the med. It's not going to the local, your local CVS or Walgreens or something and pick up your medicine.
I had a cancer patient who was really new to cannabis. She was near the end of life stage of her cancer diagnosis. And I remember, first meeting her husband was a pharmacist. And, he was very stoic and had very serious concerns about this whole thing. And by the time we talked for an hour, he was all gung-ho. And they worked with it for a couple of months. But I'll never forget her and the whisper of her voice, because she was so weak, was just, why does it have to be so hard? And I hear that in my mind all the time for all these patients.
Yeah.
A lot of them can't even get to the store. So a family member has to also get a medical card to be able to shop. So yeah, it's still way too difficult.
I heard one story of a woman that was arrested I think it was in Washington, taking medication to her family member because she had it, even though whatever they did not think that she had the proper documentation to be bringing the medicine to it's just
or dying relative.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the the people that are obtaining it legally, although they live maybe on the other side of a state border where it's not legal. A state case in Kansas. Her name is Shonda, and I'm sure maybe not. She basically was treating her Crohn's, her very severe Crohn's, with cannabis oil, with an RSO, a Rick Simpson oil type product. Her son was in a DARE class, and the officer was talking about how marijuana had no use. And her son in the DARE class said, well, it saved my mom's life. And before the school day was out, they raided her home.
Oh my gosh.
Doing time, lost her son. I believe she's out now. But yeah, there's just I could go on, the horror stories. And there's no reason for a non-toxic plant. The poinsettias in your home at Christmas are more dangerous than this.
Yeah.
Which I don't think people understand. I think that's a big thing people need to understand. You could devour an entire plant, and other than maybe having a very upset colon, you're really going to be okay. We had a guy here eat a whole ounce of raw cannabis bud just to prove the point. He slept real good that night. But really.
Well, and then they will hand out opiates and things like that there's a known horrible side effects and addictions and.
Absolutely. They gave me, I was on Demerol 4 times a day during my illness. And near the end, they wanted to try a fentanyl patch. which I didn't know anything about it at the time. This was in the late 90s, not quite the big craze that fentanyl seems to be right now. And I put it on, and I think it was within minutes, 10 minutes max, just projectile vomiting, just horrific. So I pulled it off, told them there's no way I could tolerate that, and they can't be cut. So their next option was methadone. And there's no way.
My gosh.
No, you're going to tell me that methadone was better for me than using my cannabis plant. So yeah, it was outrageous. I absolutely told them, absolutely hell no.
So could you focus? I mean, when you were taking any of those medications, did you, I mean, so many of them make you dysfunctional. I mean, you can't function, you can't hold it, you can't talk, you can't,
Absolutely.
you know, you're high.
You're too much. That was my,
yeah.
I'm a fairly conservative with my words person. I'm very chatty, but I don't tell you everything. I found that on these medications, I annoyed myself with the volume of just talking all the time, and I felt like, you know, like someone said something, I just turned around and said it for absolutely no apparent reason. I literally annoyed myself on the Demerol. That got to be, I used to tell somebody, don't tell me any secrets.
I guess I'm not taking
Can't keep them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're using marijuana, you don't have to really get stoned. You know, there is a sweet spot where you're not out of it, you know, just vegging out on the couch.
So my focus, I offer one-on-one counseling, but I don't do that very often. I'm super, super busy. So what I try to do is answer everybody's questions online and then email. And then if someone needs specific help, I can help them in a one-on-one situation. But what my goal is with people new to cannabis is to let them know that intoxication isn't the goal. And a lot of the things that they've seen or heard about marijuana are related to intoxication. And even intoxication at its worst is nothing like pain medication or alcohol or other things that you may associate intoxication with. For me, my goal was to be, you know, like that role model or that poster kid for adult use. I don't even think recreational is really recreational. You don't ever say I'm going to have a recreational beer.
Yeah, right. True. Social drinker.
And I think cannabis, if you're smoking cannabis to relax at night, I still feel personally that's medicinal, even though you're not signing up, you know, in states where it's recreational and people are going and buying marijuana to relax at night. Whatever. I don't consider that a recreational use. I still think that they need to relax. But I use cannabis.
Okay.
I always felt like there was this stigma with the pot leaves and the stoner kids and the, you know, everybody that smokes pot. I got kicked out of the Arizona Republican Facebook page for talking about marijuana and told that I sit on the couch and eat Cheetos all day. I have always used cannabis while simultaneously running, if not 1, 2, or 3 different businesses or having a job and a business. So I always felt that if nothing else, I'm a person who can show that you can have a serious illness and still function. It's okay to rest in between and work hard. And that cannabis, if that's what gets me through it, and I can show other people that I can still have a full-time job, plus this advocacy business on the side. Plus I have 9 grandchildren. My husband and I have 7 children between us. So we have a very busy, full lifestyle. I could take a couple of puffs. I actually have a little tiny pen. I could take a couple of puffs and go about my day. My mood, my pain levels, and my nausea are all handled. 90% of the time, no one would ever know that I was a cannabis user, other than the fact that that's all I talk about.
Right,
but,
right.
You know, and that's because I want people to start associating successful, busy, life full, and cannabis. That's not either or.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you are you are vaping, is that correct?
I actually consume all sorts.
Okay.
My favorite is I actually like a water pipe with dried flower. bud. That's my actual favorite. I feel like I can dose that. It's a 45-minute on average for the average person when inhaled. So being that I work almost entirely from home, that's still convenient for me. If I'm going to be out and about, an edible, throw a cookie in my purse. This vape pen is one of the newer products. It's a live resin. It has no additives, and it's cleaner than the original ones they used to come out with. That's super convenient to throw in my purse. I take it to a lot of black tie events. I'm probably going to get busted now.
Yeah.
But I don't drink. So
Right.
every time we're all at a party, I can step into the restroom, take 2 puffs off my pen and go back to the party. My pain doesn't go away just because I'm out in public. That's part of the problem with the marijuana laws. Just because I'm at a fancy event from 4:30 to 9:30 at night doesn't mean those 5 hours I don't have nausea and pain like I do the rest of the time.
Yeah. So, and then when, you compare it to if the doctors had given you, Demerol or Percocet or whatever, you could pop that at the, while you're there, hey, it's time for my dose. I'm going to take it. Nothing's thought about,
Exactly. There's a lot of hypocrisy, we have come so far, but we have so far still to go.
Well, people need
women our age group, I think are part of, we're the majority. We are in general seeking out healthier options. Although the stigma of the last 40 years with cannabis has not been a positive, healthful connotation, I do believe that our network of interested moms, sisters, wives who are really responsible for most of the health of our families. It's not usually that the husband's in charge of making sure the kids get to the doctor. So I think we have a really great opportunity to influence the opinions of the rest of the world on cannabis.
Yeah, we need people like you out there speaking up and showing, that, hey, I am functioning. This is medicine. This is not
I'm functioning
me.
more.
Yeah. Without it, I would, exactly.
Fully disabled without it.
Yes.
I sat at home. I could get up long enough to get my kids to school. I went back to bed till they got out of school. I got up to pick them up and kind of be sort of alert. And 6 o'clock, I was done. Now we're up at 6. We have a restaurant. I have a busy baking. I bake all the desserts for our restaurant, plus doing this. Plus I run all the social media and the web, so,
It's a lot.
It's a huge difference. It's not even a slight improvement. It's survival for me.
So how did you start using? I mean, did we get to that you?
I was 18, I think, the first time I ever smoked marijuana. We jokingly put the name of my bakery line is Mama's Baked. We have goods written in underneath. And we have that as established in 1982. And that's the joke, is that's the first time I smoked pot.
Yeah.
And I used it, honestly, I can say throughout my entire adult life. It didn't start, I'm trying to think when I actually even knew, probably 2007, we went to Amsterdam and went to the Cannabis Cup. My husband surprised me and bought us judging passes and, the real world of cannabis. And I think that's when it opened my eyes to what was possible. We only got in Arizona, over the course of those young adult years, there was no choice, or it was just whatever nasty stuff. And I look at it now, it's what stuff I was using. Amsterdam opened my eyes to strain types and tastes and profiles, and that's probably when the bug bit me, was, there's all these things. And I already was aware that it had saved me, and we were starting to see different options, and things were starting to show up, what they'd call, I guess, the black market more. various types of cannabis was popping up from different states that were starting to legalize that surrounded us. And then in 2010, when we started volunteering, we grew probably 60 different types of cannabis in our, at least, probably more. I can't even count. So learning all that and watching it from, you know, we called them clone to flower and going through that whole process. The bug hit me hard, and I've seen things and got to participate in quantities of cannabis that I never thought were imaginable. You know, we'd grow, have a big harvest and spend days trimming, and just all those experiences just kept getting me farther and farther into it. I've had 2 edible lines also in Arizona.
That are sold in the dispensaries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The first one was the first in Maricopa County. That one's still up and running. Wasn't my thing. Did not agree with the quality standards. I'll leave it at that, of either the management style or the ingredients in the product. So we parted ways. I directly left from that building that day to another dispensary that asked us to open another kitchen. So we opened a second kitchen. That one closed after I left, about a month after I left. We came to Sedona and opened a restaurant up here. The industry for those 2 years that I was in the actual dispensary side is not why I got into the cannabis industry. I didn't like the energy. I didn't like the ethics. I didn't fit for me. So although I was heartbroken, it was, a dream. I did get to do all the things I set out to do. They just didn't last as long. And that was in part my choice for it to not go on longer. And I do feel that I think, again, with more women in the industry, it's a very male-dominated industry. I've grown my hair out since, but at the time I had a mohawk, kept my hair super short on top, had the little faux hawk on top, had my nose pierced, bandanas, a lot of black clothing, because I kind of needed to hide the fact that I'm a 50-something-year-old woman, trying to get into the cannabis industry. And we're not really desired to be in that industry right now. And I think there's a lot of people changing it, but it definitely here it just wasn't a good place to be. So I'm glad that I had the experience and I learned so much, and our edibles were amazing, but it also taught me what to teach people about edibles, how to make their own is my next. We're going to start some cooking classes soon, but I really feel like everybody needs to make their own. The marijuana that people tried to, let's say, force me to use in food was unacceptable for unhealthy people. I had to keep reminding them that we're not putting this into food that cancer patients with no immune system are going to consume. I won't do it, and I won't have my name on it. So that's a big issue. And there's a lot of things in the industry that are fabulous and I'm a huge supporter of, and I hope I can continue to participate in giving them my feedback, because I do have some friends still in the business. But there's a lot of ethical and health conscious changes that I'd like to see them more excited about. The amount of income that they're receiving, it's not for lack of income for them to try to do things on a healthier scale.
Yeah.
Like these vapes even.
Yeah.
It's progressing. I think the demand is, the more we demand it, the more it'll happen.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, I guess. So what are you doing to stay involved in exactly, because we haven't really talked about that. What do you do?
So I have a website called potofwellness.com where I do have a opportunity for people who, if they wanted to work on me one-on-one with cannabis and how to use it for their lives. Usually the people that are interested in that are someone really that's really terrified of cannabis. In general, though, I have a lot of blogs on the page that help guide people through newer people through the early stages of learning about cannabis. I'm trying to get a little of the fear, a little of the apprehension and overwhelm. You walk into a dispensary now and there's so many choices and you're just like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what questions to ask. I think so. I'm trying to help people with a bridge just to that initial stage, you know, and we have a Facebook page where we can interact a little bit more. And then I also have a tincture class. If you go to my the potofwellness.com page, there's a shop page. And I have a tincture class. It's free of charge. It's just on the shop page because it was a logical place to put it. But I really encourage people to make their own edibles, how you can control what's in it. A lot of the times, you know, they'll tell you it's a hybrid or an indica, and you get home and you want to clean your house when you're supposed to eat the candy bar and go to bed. That's my biggest frustration. There's no strain consistency in edibles. I want to know when I eat a cookie if I'm going to sleep or if I'm going to clean my house. I need to know that beforehand. So I really think making your own tincture is the start. You can add it to juice, tea, coffee. You can make a daytime version, a nighttime version. And I think it's a great starting place for older consumers who don't want to inhale.
Right.
And you can control the strength of your tincture. You can control how much you put in it. You control what it's made from. It's gluten-free. It's sugar-free. So it covers all the dietary needs. I figured that class would be the one that covers the most non-inhaling consumers that want to find another way to utilize the benefits of the cannabis plant. So that's free out there for anybody who's interested. There's another, I think that we have one other class. It might be $5, but that's a general overview of cannabis. But the one that's really helpful, I think, is the tincture class. And then other than that, my real life is we have a restaurant in Sedona. It's a kind of a comfort food, Italian-based. I bake all the desserts from that. So I'm using my edible talents without the cannabis.
Right. Maybe when it goes recreational, then you can add that.
That's great. Yeah. I can't even get into the industry on my own here. That would have been the logical next step. But unless you have a dispensary license, you are not able to participate. But I think I'm keeping my toe in. I've made some great contacts through the co-op. Through my couple of years in the edible lines, I personally went to every dispensary to obtain our sales. So I went and knocked on every door with my bag of samples. It's really not hard to get people to take samples of medical marijuana.
Yeah, I guess not. Oh, that's awesome. So what did your friends and family, colleagues, and when you started saying I'm using, how'd they react?
Yeah. I came out of the green closet about the time of the co-op. At that point, we couldn't really keep it a secret anymore. The first 6 months of the co-op, I was a volunteer. So in addition to our evenings, and my husband always worked full-time and volunteered, I was a social worker writing behavior treatment plans for developmentally disabled adults that received psychotropic medications. It's quite a title. So basically, and I had been a social services, social worker, basically my whole career up to this point. And I remember when I left that job, they had offered me a full-time position to help run the co-op. My daughter and I ran the front office and took care of the patients and the certifications. So when I resigned, I decided that would be my trial of coming out of the green closet. And so I went into it was actually the owner of the business's office and said, I'm giving you my 2-week notice. I'm going to have to resign. I'm going to go make pot cookies, grow marijuana. And he shook his finger at me. He said, I always knew you were too happy. So that was my first trial. My daughter, who's now 27, my oldest daughter is 27, has muscular dystrophy. She was the National Goodwill Ambassador for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So I was a national poster mom. Talk about, a few things to get over to come out. I know Jerry Lewis. We were on television with Jerry Lewis. Cannabis has helped her pain levels throughout her adult life. And she ran the co-op with me. So that part of the family wasn't hard to discuss it with.
Right.
Now I have other relatives. I have a relative who's a judge who had very different opinions on how he awarded custody in cases where a parent had a cannabis card. And he had said, well, I award it to the parent who doesn't have the card. And I said, well, why would you penalize the person who actually followed the rules? You make no sense.
Yeah.
So this person went out and followed the rules and got the card. So hopefully I, educated him a little bit. And now, other than the grandkids aren't allowed to see my Facebook page, which is fine. I swear anyways too much for the grandkids. I think they're all pretty supportive. I think, again, it goes back to education. I've had a couple TV opportunities that my son was really worried about anybody on that TV knowing I smoked marijuana. It's like, it's legal. I'm not breaking it.
Right. Yeah.
Being like, they still worry about me, I think, a little bit. I worry about me a little bit. I'm very careful. I'm very by the book. You get people all the time just because you're a cannabis advocate texting, can I have some pot?
Yeah. No. It's like
But yeah, they're good. Everybody's pretty good. I have some very, very conservative relatives that were tolerant in the beginning and now are seeking out advice for illness. I think I hate that it has to wait until people get really sick because maybe it could prevent it.
Right.
I don't know.
But I'm sure seeing that you're functioning, you are, this is not the stoner on the couch, eating chips all day. So, it's just.
It's always Cheetos.
Yeah, Cheetos. They gotta,
Cheetos.
People have got to, realize that it's so much more.
And, I just want to throw in as well that, that we talk about it's not the stoner thing. I want to give a big shout out, as much crap as the stoners of the world get, which I probably would have been one in the 80s too. They paved the road for us, all those old stoners in the T-shirts with the braids that, sometimes the industry is really snotty about. And it's the new face and we're not this and we're not that. I don't want in any way anyone to think that I am not incredibly grateful. Because they're the warriors that wouldn't take no for an answer and made sure that this was available for us now. Had they not been, doing what they've done these last, it's been, 30 years, 35 years, that, we owe them a great debt of gratitude. And by no means, by my trying to change the stigma, am I, negating what they've done.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's an interesting.
Yeah, there are warriors, and we have to make sure that we don't forget that. And trying to make the industry different for a different consumer doesn't negate their work.
Right. So how has marijuana impacted your life? I mean, how would you say that it
saved your life?
Saved your life? Are you on less pharmaceuticals, no pharmaceuticals now due to it? Zero.
Nothing.
That's amazing.
Nothing. I take that back. I have a port. And I do IVs at night while I sleep. It's all close. My nurse comes on Wednesday. And that's sugar. Part of my disease, I overuse sugar to balance the process in my liver. So I deplete it all, so I have to run it for 8 hours at night while I sleep.
Wow.
Crazy, weird alien disease. But I mean, other than the IV bags, because somebody will argue and say, well, yeah, they do IVs. They're glucose. That's all I use. No pain medication. I used to take Ativan when I worked in the dispensaries because they drove me crazy, but not a thing. And I can't take anything. Everything's contraindicated. I can't eat kale. I'm not supposed to be in sunlight. It's a super weird disorder.
So it's the disorder because it makes you intolerant of medicine and pharmaceuticals or whatever.
So I don't know how I would have survived, and I don't know how I would have had a desire to survive. I couldn't eat food. I couldn't, my bones hurt on the inside. Your marrow, part of the disorder, your bone marrow can crystallize, tiny little crystals. And it's uncomfortable. And I honestly don't know, we used to jokingly call it smoke a little hope back in the day. And I really think not only did it help the physical symptoms, it helps to get, like, I'm not in pain now. I think that's something that people initially don't understand. I'm not in pain. I still have the same spots. You shouldn't know where certain parts of your body are, kind of thing. Like you should know where a certain bone in your leg is, but you can feel it because it's uncomfortable. But there's a different way, I think, that you learn, and maybe it's partly the antidepressant type effects of the cannabis. I don't think of pain as an enemy anymore either. It's not a big battle me against the pain. The pain's kind of a sidekick. It's not as severe. The cannabis definitely takes all the edges off, all the I can't tolerate this anymore kind of parts of it.
Makes it tolerable.
Absolutely. And mentally, it's not the main thing you're focusing on. It's just an annoyance. I think it gets to the annoyance part. I have a very severe level associated with my disorder. I know other people who completely can eliminate all the discomfort things, and that'd be great, but that's not what I'm holding out for. Honestly, just, I don't know what I would have had to live for had I had to continue in the stage that I was at near the end of, right prior to getting diagnosed. The sugar has helped immensely as well, and that helped a lot of the other. I was having seizures, I was having intermittent paralysis, I was having intermittent blindness. So all those symptoms, the diagnosis and the sugar treatments have helped. It's helped my electrical system. But all the other stuff, I don't know. I'm not a suicide kind of person.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So when you were taking pharmaceuticals, they were making you sicker.
Absolutely.
Because your body couldn't tolerate.
Yeah. And they didn't know in the early stages that the side effects that I was experiencing were side effects. They thought it was disease presenting because they didn't know what was wrong with me. So they kept throwing pills at things, and the pills were making everything worse. And yeah, they ruled out MS, all different kinds of cancers. I had all kinds of biopsies. They were really sure it was MS and couldn't figure it out. It went on and on and on and on. And finally, a little neurologist, I was having a nerve conduction study because I had very weak legs. And during the nerve conduction study, he said, this looks like a disease we studied for 5 minutes in medical school. I want to test you for it. I'm like, no more tests. I'm done testing. Not happening. And he said, it's just a urine test. Like, all right, fine, I'll give you pee. Because I literally been scoped, punch biopsied. I just couldn't do anymore. And it was years and years. The test came back 10 times the norm. It took 6 more months to prove through Mayo because it's super, super, super rare. Mad King George had it. It's kind of where it comes from. It either presents neurological or psychological, and I'm just hoping this isn't a delusion. But
so how can you answer how many years have you been using the marijuana medically?
7. I got a card day one, the day it could come out. Yeah, prior to that, it wasn't considered medical, but for me it was, and it was survival. It wasn't legal.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you found it. I'm glad you know about it and are sharing it.
Hopefully help somebody else who's where I was at.
Yes. So I think we'll wind up. It's been really interesting, but can you tell us for the final spiel, what's the real buzz you want everyone to know about medical marijuana?
It's had the worst PR. Medical marijuana has had the worst PR of any plant in history. This non-toxic flower bud could medically change our world. And the point of fear about this plant is I think has run its course, and I think it's time now that we all just take a minute. I have nothing to gain by promoting the cannabis plant. I don't sell the cannabis plant. My goal is that people have more comfort, and I think what the real buzz I would want people to know is that there is a happy, healthy, functional life with cannabis use, even when maybe there wasn't one prior to it. The harmless nature and the efficacy of symptom relief has to be experienced to be understood. And I've been lucky enough to work with well over 500 patients, and I got to personally witness, and I have all the stories in my mind of, I wished I had started this sooner. I wished I had tried this a little sooner. And so I just hope less people wait until they need it for end of life comfort, and maybe try it sooner to relieve the symptoms.
And again, it's not just smoking it. It's not. There's vaping, there's edibles,
Absolutely.
there's tinctures. There's all kinds of ways to do it. If it's not just smoking a joint or a bong or whatever, it's not.
Many ways to consume medical cannabis without being intoxicated as well. Not only are there multiple ways to use it, like you said, tinctures, vaping, eating, smoking, topically on your hands. Even if an arthritis patient could get their hands on a tub of THC cannabis creams, they'd be amazed at the pain discomfort. I'm at it myself sometimes when I walk around with a headache and I don't think to put some cream on the back of my neck, because then it's gone like that. So yeah, I'd love to see medical cannabis. It's a safe additive to everyone's cabinet. You could have it in your cabinet for all those times. Maybe you don't use it all the time. Maybe you're a person who only has muscle weaknesses when you play too hard on the weekend. You could still have a joint cream in your cabinet that you just rub on the sore spots. Even that I think is life-changing for a lot of people.
By the way, if you look at a lot of the old bottles of medicine back from the 20s and back in 1915 and all that kind of stuff, guess what they had in them?
Cannabis sativa.
Yeah.
And then not to even mention, you get into the hemp world where it would we could solve the energy crisis, the deforestation, plastics, toxic. We could pretty much substitute hemp in all those categories.
And clean up the soil as well while you're doing it. Yeah.
Jobs, farming jobs. So yeah, I think we've come a long way. We got a long way to go, and I'd love to invite all the feminine energy cannabis warriors too to help with that, because I really do believe that, even if you're not, a mother, you're a sister or you're a daughter, and we all have parents that are aging, or aunts or uncles. I have a nephew who just had emergency brain surgery, and I had to walk them through a tincture process because he's going through chemo and radiation, and they've never talked about cannabis before. And now hopefully it's going to help him get through the end of his treatment. And so yeah, I think we can do this.
Yes, we can. We will. And so again, your website is, and they will be on our show notes as well. And they could find out how to make the tinctures and other good info from you.
Good things on shame. There's a lot of shame associated with this. I wrote a short blog about shame. And so yeah.
Good.
That's potofwellness.com.
Okay. And how about, we didn't talk anything about CBD for, because there are states like the one I live in that is, medical marijuana, except for whatever, cancer or something, is not legal. So CBD is available in all 50 states. It's legal. It doesn't have the THC in it, but it does have. Have you have any?
Cannabidiol.
Yeah.
It has a couple of the other compounds. It's usually based out of the hemp plant, not the cannabis plant. Well, they're both cannabis hemp versus cannabis sativa. I think what I would ask I'm not a big proponent of CBD being in a medical marijuana state. I'd rather people have the whole plant, and I advocate for the whole plant, and I wish everybody had the whole plant nationally. I have to travel soon, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. I really think that you have to be very careful with your sources.
I agree.
If y'all have some that you're really happy with, I've also been on medical marijuana so long, I don't know that I'm a great candidate to do my own testing with it because I don't know how it'll work. And my other last cautionary note would be that, big truck coming. My other last cautionary note with that would be that CBD tends to dampen your euphoric effects of THC.
Yes.
And I do find that a lot of people aren't experiencing the outcomes they hope because they think that CBD is more important. So they're overdoing it. So just like with, I guess, with cannabis, I think just make sure you do your research, know your sources, and less or more is not better in cannabis. Not with medical marijuana and not with CBD. It's not one of those things where, oh, well, if I can get up to taking, X amount, it's going to be better.
Yeah. So we always say full spectrum. So you get the whole, whole entourage effect. You need to be sure who's supplying it, that it actually is, if they say it's 1,000 milligrams, it's 1,000 milligrams. You need to look at their testing.
Yes.
If they don't supply their testing, you got to wonder why. And the same thing, it's very difficult concept because we're so used to our medicines, it's twice a day, 2 pills a day, or 1 every 12 hours. This is not like that. And I assume that,
Right.
THC, is the same. You kind of have to be in touch with your body and you may need more for a while until your body starts adjusting to it. And then you're going to take less rather than more where, in pain pills, you get to a plateau and you got to take more in order to get the same effect that you were getting before. So we try to say that every time and to get people to understand that they're just going to have to play with it and alter the dose according to their own bodies.
I try to think of it too as I think it's a great addition, antioxidant wise and anti-inflammatory wise to your routine if you are in fact in the state.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great articles too in states where you have the access to THC and CBD. There's some really good Google articles. I can't promote I forget the legal term, but I can't do any medical benefit statements. But there are some great articles about the benefits of a 1-to-1 versus a lower ratio and higher ratio. And there's some great reading materials out there on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we try to get people to educate themselves. Look, there's tons of info out there, and that we're trying to get that out there and everybody to understand. But for those people that aren't in a medical marijuana state, at least they have the option of trying the CBD. We've had good results with people that we've introduced it to, and sometimes you do need. Yeah, sometimes you do need the THC, but sometimes depending the CBD does seem to help a lot, so good better than nothing, so.
Yep, I agree. That's why I'm not necessarily a proponent and haven't backed a specific one because I can't try them. Because I don't believe that I'll notice a clear difference as well as somebody else. I have to get a guinea pig. I probably could get one of my neighbors.
we keep getting guinea pigs, so.
There you go.
Yeah, so they'll be interviewed and testimonials put up and all. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to coming to Sedona and eating at your restaurant. And so, we will be doing that.
If I can turn you around here to see if you can see a little red mountain. I don't know if it'll.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Little.
And that's where the restaurant is?
Not entirely.
Yeah.
But it's about a mile from here.
Awesome.
The views from the restaurant are actually much better. They're over the creek.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I look forward to it. I know it's going to be delicious and beautiful as well.
It's a great place to come get away and rebalance your
all that. Yep, all that good energy vortex is there. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and look forward to helping you and getting the word out and educating more people with about medical marijuana. Good luck and thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Please go to www.getbeyondthebuzz.com. We have lots of information there to help you gain the knowledge you need to safely and effectively use medical marijuana and CBD. Listen, learn, share what you hear so people don't suffer needlessly. That's it for now. Until next time, this is Susan Cromer. May you be healthy and prosper.